Welcome to This Explainer. Look, today we aren't just doing some dry breakdown of facts and figures. We are stepping directly into the shadows of a psychological thriller. We're tracing the circuitry of a city literally held hostage by its own systems. This whole narrative explores that incredibly dangerous intersection of technology, power, and the illusion of safety. We are about to unravel the cipher of Halley Street, so keep your eyes wide open, because nothing in this story is exactly as it seems. Picture this. At just 14 years old, Mara Ilyin solved a university cryptography contest using nothing but a pencil, a napkin, and the kind of eerie calm that made adults whisper the word genius like it was some fragile, dangerous thing. By 26, she's working in the gleaming glass tower of HelixGate, building security networks so impenetrable the company bragged they were future-proof. But Mara didn't smile at their slogans. She smiled at patterns. Her mind saw the city not as concrete and steel, but as raw circuitry. Every system, no matter how perfectly polished, had a seam, and Mara could always find it.
Section 1. Finding the Seam, the Architecture of a Genius.
Okay, let's dive into this. Her trajectory was staggering, right? A child prodigy at 14, a corporate savant at 26. HelixGate handed her the keys to the kingdom, financial networks, municipal infrastructure, private clouds, all under this noble banner of protecting people. And she believed it, at first. But then, just a month later, an independent journalist who happened to be investigating HelixGate vanishes from the internet in a single night. I mean, gone. Accounts deleted, photos corrupted, records utterly erased. Mara stared at the empty digital space where a real human being used to exist, and she resigned on a Wednesday. By Thursday, she had disappeared entirely.
That disappearance, it wasn't a retreat, it was an arming process. She realized that if the world insisted on being built from lies, she would use truth as a weapon. Something inside Mara was turning into a hard, clean edge. She wasn't just walking away from her former employer, she was preparing to completely dismantle it.
And this is exactly how she announced her new purpose to the world. On a Friday afternoon, a message forcefully hijacked 100 screens across the city. From digital bus stop displays to towering corporate dashboards, her phantom persona was officially born. The name at the bottom was typed with the elegance of a handwritten signature, Cipherwraith. Instantly, the media called her a terrorist. The police called her a phantom. But the internet? The internet called her a hero.
Section 2. Birth of Cipherwraith, Crimes of Exposure.
And this brilliantly illustrates her methods. Her first crime wasn't theft, it was exposure. She leaked confidential HelixGate memos proving the company sold predictive policing models that labeled entire neighborhoods as high risk before a single crime even occurred. The result was immediate: massive protests and absolute panic from the CEO. Then came the second wave. She hit a bank ledger. She didn't steal a dime. Instead, she erased medical and tuition debt for thousands of people. The media called it total financial chaos, but everyday citizens, they called it breathing room.
Right after that bank hack, a new message arrived on everyone's screens. Debt is a prison with polite walls. Consider this a hole in the fence. You can practically feel the hypnotic, Robin Hood-like allure of her crusade. Meanwhile, Mara was watching it all unfold from a rented room with half-closed curtains, feeling this profound sense of alignment. It was like a compass finally pointing true north. But of course, you cannot punch a hole in the fence of the elite without inviting a predator to hunt you down.
The government desperately needed a hunter. Enter Taskforce Paladin. They knew they couldn't just use standard detectives to catch a digital phantom. They needed someone whose mind worked just as relentlessly as Mara's, but for the other side.
Section 3. The Surgeon's Trap. The Hunter appears.
Now, what's really interesting here is the contrast between these two. Two geniuses, perfectly opposed. On one side, we have Mara, fluid, hidden, tearing down corrupt systems to uncover the truth. On the other side, Dr. Elias Kade, a brilliant mathematician turned behavioral analyst, famous for predicting cyber criminals like they were chess pieces. He was all sharp jaw, surgical precision, and absolute certainty. When he went on television, he spoke as if every single sentence had been meticulously proofread. He believed order was inherently good and disruption was pure evil. And Mara? She found that absolute certainty deeply, deeply irritating.
Kade's methodology was fascinating. He didn't just smash through firewalls, he laid meticulous traps. He built files that looked like perfectly incriminating, juicy HelixGate secrets. He'd hide them deep inside a honeycombed network archive, and then he'd just wait. Wait for the packet routes to sing the exact moment Cipherwraith touched them. It was a flawless strategy. Well, almost flawless. The only problem was that Mara was way too careful to actually take the bait.
Instead of falling for it, she bypassed his traps completely. She slid a whisper directly into a live broadcast system, flashing right onto Kate's personal monitor. "You're hunting the wrong monster. Look up who hired you." The word hired lodged right under Kade's ribs. You could see his pupils tighten in real time. 2 days later, Mara proved her point by unleashing a digital fire that cataloged and published every dangerous tool HelixGate had ever sold. The stock completely crashed, and the city collectively exhaled.
Section 4. A mirror for monsters. The illusion of safety.
This is where the story takes a terrifying turn into physical reality. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the city's emergency system triggered a massive evacuation alert. Phones screamed, sirens blared. A synthetic voice warned of a lethal chemical spill. Total chaos spilled into the streets, police cars collided, children were separated from parents in the blind panic. 10 minutes later, a message arrived: "A test, you failed." In an instant, the public's love for Cipherwraith curdled into pure hatred. But Mara stared at her screen, sick to her stomach. She hadn't done it. Someone had injected this through a back door, mimicking her exact style and timing. So the question was, who on earth was writing fake crimes in Mara's handwriting?
So the crucial point is what happens next. Angry and desperate for justice, Mara furiously breaches HelixGate's private CEO vault, intending to freeze their funds. But inside, she stumbles upon a single, devastating folder. It's labeled Cipherwraith/Origin. Inside are transcripts, complex plans, and budget allocations, all predating her resignation from the company. Mara's heartbeat hacked its own rhythm. Her horrific realization? Her entire crusade, her very identity as Cipherwraith, had been orchestrated by someone else.
The blueprint she uncovered was absolutely chilling. The project owner? Dr. Elias Kade. His master plan was to use Mara's genius as a cover to create controlled leaks, escalate the attacks, like that horrifying fake chemical spill, to stir massive, blinding public fear. Once the city was terrified, Taskforce Paladin would swoop in to offer the ultimate solution, a brand new, highly lucrative government surveillance mandate. Kade hadn't just been hunting the myth of Cipherwraith, he manufactured it. Mara's genius had built a spotlight, and Kade was using it to blind the crowd.
Section 5. The final signature. The trap snaps back.
Mara stopped hiding. At noon, every screen in the city flickered once again. But this time, it wasn't a threat. It was a confession. "I am Cipherwraith. I thought I was freeing you. I was being used." She dumped the entire Origin folder, the recordings, the contract trails. She directly tied Kade to HelixGate leadership and corrupt government donors, peeling open the villain to reveal the true monster underneath. But she knew Kade would just go on TV, calmly adjust his tie, and call it all disinformation. So she set a trap of her own. She deployed something called the Cure file. It was a digital temptation so mathematically perfect that a man obsessed with absolute control simply could not resist it. Kade's team seized it immediately, completely convinced they were about to crack her network and pinpoint her physical location live in their lab.
Let's move to how this built, because it's brilliant. When Kade's team opened the file, it didn't give them coordinates. It acted as a mirror. It unleashed a live compilation of every illegal order Kade had ever signed, every trap he laid, recorded in his own voice with his own face. And Mara threaded this live feed directly into the city's broadcast system. Kade stood in his lab, realizing way too late that his own confession was currently playing on Kade screens in the subways and projected massively on the side of the HelixGate tower itself. The trap he built had violently snapped around his own wrist.
Right before the feed finally cut to black, one soft, final message from Mara appeared. The most dangerous criminal is the one who calls it security. By that evening, Taskforce Paladin was dissolved, and Kade was detained. The city began to heal, not because it was suddenly perfectly safe, but because its eyes were finally wide open. Mara wiped her drives, packed a small bag, and walked away into a completely different life. But our story has one final, unsettling secret to reveal.
Days later, a journalist published an interview with an anonymous source claiming to be the reformed Cipherwraith. The source said, "I became a criminal because I was useful." Most readers assumed Mara said it, but they were wrong. If you looked closely, buried deep in the margins of the article, embedded in the metadata where only a genius would think to look, a tiny signature waited. It read, "Hello again, Cipherwraith." But that metadata wasn't signed by Mara. It was signed by Kade. He was already bargaining,
already crafting his new narrative.
Dr. Elias Kade had never been hunting the monster. He had been auditioning for it. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? When the architects of our security are the exact same people writing the threats, how can we ever truly know the difference between the lock and the cage? Thank you for walking through this explainer with me. Until next time, look very closely at the systems around you and try to find the seam.